Who wants to start?
It's not funny.
Archaic thoughts, coarse language. I got over it. I'm pretty sure. Have any thoughts on the reading?
The most recent American satirical comedy drama film, American Fiction, which is based on Percival Everett's 2001 novel, Erasure, takes aim at this exact practice as well as white people's particular fixation with stories that portray black people as little more than stereotypes. American Fiction is a delightfully fantastic film. Even though it isn't always clever, it can be extremely blunt and direct at times. As was already established, the movie American Fiction is a suspenseful mix of humor and drama. With an all-star ensemble that includes Jeffrey Wright, Erica Alexander, Tracy Ellis Ross, Sterling K. Brown, John Ortiz, and Issa Rae, Cord Jefferson directs his debut feature picture. Thelonious Monk Ellison, a college lecturer played by Jeffrey Wright, starts a daring class debate by writing the word "nier" on the whiteboard in the first scene of the narrative. Students respond to this conduct in different ways, but one is so disturbed by it that she leaves the classroom and reports Monk to the administration. The audience responded to the film's humorous opening sequence with a mixture of laughter and cringe-worthy reactions due to the usage of the very contentious and derogatory word, nier. This instantaneous, powerful response established the tone for the movie's thematic investigation and gave audiences a preview of what to anticipate from the remainder of the production. The narrative revolves around Jeffrey Wright's portrayal of Thelonious Monk Ellison, a middle-aged black writer who is fed up with the way the business disregards his work. Monk aims to provide an alternative narrative about black life, one that isn't limited to hardship, struggle, and fatherlessness. He is frustrated by the mainstream success of other black authors, whose stories frequently center around stereotypical themes of black trauma like drug dealing, incarceration, absent fathers, and street violence. Monk takes a risk when he chooses to compose a fictitious narrative under the pen name Stagg R. Lee and poses as an escaped prisoner. His book, My Pathology, which he renamed from My Pathology, acquires rapid attention, notoriety, and profitable publishing offers, exposing a harsh reality. The predominantly white publishing industry appears more interested in putting out corny accounts of black trauma than in examining the range of black experiences. In addition to navigating his job as a black writer, Monk deals with issues in his love and familial lives. Through conversations with individuals closest to him, the film challenges his views and ideals as it explores his path of personal and professional growth. This story asks the audience to consider the intricacies of the black experience as well as more general concerns about racial stereotyping in storytelling. Thelonious Monk Ellison is portrayed by Jeffrey Wright as reticent and somewhat cut off from the outside world. Monk lives alone and apart from his family in various ways. His siblings, Clifford Ellison, Sterling K. Brown and Lisa Ellison, Tarchi Ellis Ross, also doctors, interact with Monk in different ways. Unlike his tense connection with Clifford, he is more intimate with Lisa and spends a lot of time with her. The film explores the issue of LGBTQ+ persons facing discrimination within the black community, which Clifford exemplifies via his gay identity. The fact that Monk resembles their father, with whom Clifford had a tense connection, contributes to their tense relationship. Their mother Agnes Ellison, played by Leslie Uggams, demonstrates the lack of acceptance Clifford experiences in his family by expressing difficulties in comprehending Clifford's sexuality and developing dementia. This further highlights the tension in the relationship. In the meanwhile, Monk suffers with his work's lack of global recognition even though he has produced multiple volumes. His opinions, which he begins by subtly disparaging another black writer, Sinatra Golden, played by Issa Rae, exacerbate this resentment. Monk is displeased that Sinatra's work, which he believes perpetuates stereotypes about black suffering, is receiving a lot of attention. Lorraine looks after Monk's mother and keeps the house clean. In addition to carrying up her responsibilities, Lorraine strikes up a love relationship with a neighborhood security officer while Monk and his siblings are abroad. The way Lorraine's character is portrayed in this story is unique. In contrast to the way housekeepers are typically shown in movies, where they are frequently neglected or treated as less than, Jefferson treats Lorraine like a valued member of the family, a respect that is far more common among Hispanic people. Lorraine's position is elevated in American Fiction from that of an employee to that of a family member. She invites Monk to lead her down the aisle and propose to her during her wedding because she has such a close bond with the family. This gesture offers a polite and refreshing depiction of the job of a housekeeper in a household, demonstrating the mutual respect and close bond between Lorraine and Monk's family. Avoiding the common misconceptions, American Fiction examines the complexity of black culture and experience. Scenes in the movie recognize the historical tragedy in black history, but filmmaker Jefferson takes a new angle on these stories. He presents an alternate perspective on black life by drawing on the fictional works of Stagg R. Leigh and Sinatra Golden, Monk's alter persona, rather than concentrating on these cliched subjects. The movie looks at how the publishing business promotes tales about black people that are biased and based on stereotypes. It draws attention to the difficulties black writers encounter in defying these expectations, as well as the more general problem that the public is frequently only exposed to rehashed accounts of black pain. Rather from focusing on derogatory stereotypes, Monk's early work, which is eclipsed by the Pavology, sought to offer positive, enlightening viewpoints of the black experience in order to strengthen the community. The movie highlights the prejudice and preoccupation with cliched stories in the publishing industry. Publishers who meet with Monk are enthralled with his made-up image of an ex-convict and fetishize his use of colloquialisms and street jargon. This preoccupation highlights a larger problem, the unwillingness to accept and print tales that offer diverse, good portrayals of black life. American Fiction calls for a more inclusive and expansive definition of what it means to be black, criticizing the propensity to see black culture through a limited, stereotype-filled perspective. Thelonious Monk Ellison is a very intellectual African-American writer and professor living in Los Angeles who belongs to the top class. Although academics applaud his works, they don't sell well, and publishers have rejected his most recent manuscript because it isn't black enough. Due to his outspokenness towards students over racial matters, his university puts him on temporary leave and advises him to attend a literary course and visit his family in Boston. His panel receives little interest at the conference, but Sintara Golden, whose best-selling book We's Lives in D.A. Ghetto plays to black stereotypes, has a full house for her interview. Monk has close ties with his sister Lisa, a doctor, and mother Agnes, who is exhibiting symptoms of Alzheimer's illness, while in Boston. Lisa had a heart attack and passes away in the hospital after having drinks with Monk. Cliff, a plastic surgeon who is separated from Monk, attends Lisa's funeral. After being found cheating on him with a man, Cliff's wife filed for divorce. As a result, he now uses drugs often and has casual affairs. Monk moves in across the street from Coraline, a lawyer, and they begin dating. Monk, disgruntled by Sintara's success and the expenses associated with caring for his mother, produces a satirical novel titled My Pavology, which parodies the literary tropes commonly associated with black writers, such as gang violence, narcotics, melodramatic narratives, and deadbeat dads. He submits it to publishers out of disdain, and when he receives a surprise advance of $750,000, he is led to assume the identity of a convicted felon named Stagg R. Leigh by his agent Arthur. Wiley, the producer, offers Monk a movie deal as Stagg. In an attempt to sabotage the deal, the Monk demands that the title be changed to FC UK in response to the disparaging comments made by publishing executives. Surprisingly, the CEOs concur. Reluctantly, Monk accepts an invitation to assist in judging the New England Book Association's Literary Award as part of a diversity push. Sintara is a fellow judge, and Monk is taken aback to discover that she has many of the same opinions. Agnes relocates to an assisted living facility, but she has trouble adjusting. Cliff comes back to Boston for a little while, but then departs after Agnes says something homophobic. FC UK hits the bestseller list. The FBI approaches the publisher, thinking that Stagg is a fugitive, as he said in interviews, while Coraline, Cliff, and the general public continue to be oblivious that Stagg is Monk. On the day of Lorraine's wedding, the family housekeeper, Monk discovers Cliff residing at Agnes's beach home among two other men. Although Cliff has been partying and doing drugs, he has never left Boston, and Lorraine is glad to have him at the wedding. Cliff and Monk talk about the aftermath of their father's suicide at the reception, and Cliff advises Monk to let others love all of him. By submitting FC UK for the Literary Award, Monk's publisher forces him to appraise his own book. FC UK is praised by the panel's white liberal limousine judges, but Sintara deems it pandering. Monk concurs, but goes on to claim that Sintara's work is trauma PRN and untrue to her middle-class African-American upbringing. In addition to giving the market what it wants, Sintara claims that she thoroughly studied her book by speaking with marginalized people and that it is not her fault if white readers develop preconceptions as a result of her writing. They fight and split up after Monk discovers that Coraline liked reading FC UK, which infuriates him even more. FC UK is declared the winner during the awards ceremony. Once on stage, the monk announces that he must make a confession. The narrative is revealed to be Monk's script, based on his experiences, which he wrote for Wiley's production business as a substitute for the FC UK movie. The screen goes to black at this point. Monk is still apart from Coraline and has not disclosed his identity to the general public. Wiley requests that Monk rewrite the conclusion even if he likes the screenplay. The monk suggests one in which he leaves the ceremony in order to make amends with his former girlfriend. Wiley finds this objectionable since it borders on romantic comedy. Monk then offers a scenario in which he is shot dead by police at the ceremony because they think he is a wanted criminal carrying a gun. To Monk's dismay, Wiley, who is simultaneously shooting Plantation Annihilation, a blaxploitation movie, finds it hilarious, and production on the movie begins. After acknowledging each other, Monk drives out with Cliff and one of Wiley's actors, who is portraying a slave. The culmination of American Fiction is beginning to take form, an iconic, exciting ending. You can be sure that the main character will give a speech that will completely destroy our culture and teach the audience all they need to know. The suspense builds as the music rises, but the speech never materializes. Writer-director Cord Jefferson, instead, pulls back, understanding that he cannot answer all the problems he poses in his expertly crafted tightrope picture, American Fiction. It's a clever indictment of black voices being commercialized that skillfully captures the frustration of having expectations placed on marginalized viewpoints. The result is a clever, scathing, and genuinely funny crowd pleaser that passes for a fun movie featuring a middle-class, middle-aged protagonist resolving everyday issues. Primarily professional and family, which white audiences have been consuming for years. But because of the brilliant screenplay and the casting of black actors in parts that we've usually seen played by white actors, the movie tackles important issues of how black individuals are portrayed in the media and how black tales are presented with humor and critical analysis. With this outstanding cinematic debut, Jefferson introduces us to a wonderful, fresh, humorous voice in the industry. Although he has previously written for many of the most critically acclaimed television programs of the past 10 years, such as Succession, Master of None, The Good Place, and Watchmen, American Fiction marks his directorial debut. It is easy to see Jefferson giving Thelonious, Monk, Ellison, Jeffrey Wright, his protagonist, a lot of himself in many ways. After offending a white girl by writing the N-word on the classroom board during a lecture he was giving, the irate college lecturer is asked, or made, to take a leave of absence. Monk believes the students shouldn't be so easily offended and that it should be understood in the context of his talk, despite her discomfort with its conspicuous presence in the room. Is he correct, or are his opinions out of date in a culture that is now more aware than ever of institutional racism and racial inequality? Being a published author, he struggles to market his most recent work because of the stereotype that a black author should write less complex and polished works than someone with his high level of intelligence. Publishers appear to be interested exclusively in black stories, meaning that they desire stories that are loaded with cliches and black stereotypes meant to bolster the self-esteem of white audiences. Monk becomes increasingly irritated with the world after being forced to take this sabbatical. As his works are turned down because they aren't black enough, he observes the enormous success of novelist Santara Golden's Issa Rae, We's Lives in D.A. Ghetto. Although it has all the corny cliches that Monk is afraid of, audiences are loving it. Monk rolls his eyes, privately hating Golden for letting himself get to this point. He spends time with his family, from whom he is essentially alienated, during a literary festival in Boston. His brother Cliff's, Sterling K. Brown, life is in disarray after coming out as homosexual and doing drugs. His mother, Leslie Uggams, is exhibiting symptoms of dementia, and his sister Lisa, Tracy Ellis Ross, bears a large portion of the load of their hardships. His time with his family soon takes a darker turn, which exacerbates his problems and compels him to examine how he perceives the world. Monk becomes more and more tense, and he turns his rage against his work. He will provide publishers with the most stereotypical black narrative out there if all they want is stereotypical black stories. Monk writes a sleazy novel about drug traffickers, absent fathers, and murder under a false identity. Despite his hatred, he writes the book nevertheless, believing it will never be sold and hating the readers who may read it. That way, he can convince his publisher that no one wants this so-called garbage. The only black stories that appear to garner critical notice are those that are directly targeted by American Fiction. Are storylines like those in 12 Years a Slave, and Boys in the Hood, the only ones that black filmmakers can tell. Jefferson portrays such kinds of stories in a far more equitable manner than Monk, who is critical of the black authors who write them. She effectively defends herself against the notion that these tales are worthless simply because they contain a lot of stereotypical trauma in a confrontation between Monk and Goldman. In the end, American Fiction desires to have both cake and frosting. Yes, it is important to tell tales about the atrocities of slavery. Furthermore, black creatives are able to convey tales of everyday life that are unrelated to accepted stereotypes of blackness. The movie urges black artists to avoid being limited in the kinds of stories they may tell. Although it's a thin line, Jefferson's writing has commentary that is razor sharp. It is incisive without being patronizing or patronizing to its listeners. Few movies are both really amusing and as profoundly observant as American Fiction. Jeffrey Wright plays a fully realized character in this feature film who has an emotional struggle that only an actor of his level could carry off. This may be his finest performance to date. He's psychologically trapped, loving, irrational, and frantic. Throughout his career, Wright hasn't had many chances to just be funny on film with such a big canvas. It's unfortunate since he's very fun to watch, deftly bringing even the most caustic observations to life with the smallest gesture. Though their connection seems a little undercooked, Erica Alexander, who plays Monk's new love interest, is one of the few cast members who really stands out. American Fiction consists of two stories that are basically told. We witness the aftermath of Monk penning his purportedly trashy book, Fuck, which is based on black pain. He really goes to great lengths to make sure no one ever reads this. Then there's the tale of Monk reconnecting with his family in Boston, far from the easy life he's made for himself in Los Angeles. The narrative doesn't organically combine the two, and their blending occasionally feels awkward. However, the 2001 book, Erasure, by Percival Everett is adapted into American Fiction, which highlights how inadequately our society has listened to black voices. We need to hear all black tales, not just the ones that support stereotypes or hint at white guilt, if we are to listen with true ears. American Fiction manages to be a hilarious satire in and of itself while making these well-earned critiques, all thanks to Jefferson's masterful screenplay. The film concludes with Monk himself struggling with how to wrap up his narrative. Is the viewer meant to hear the furious monologue that one would anticipate the protagonist to go on about in an Oscar-winning clip? Perhaps. But with a narrative like this, would the public accept that? We might have to see the author's retribution. Or perhaps all he needs to do is win the girl and lead a happily ever after. Or maybe, whether you're black or white, life is a little more nuanced than that. Monk continues to worry about how others will view him and his work even after the credits have rolled. Hopefully, Cord Jefferson isn't pondering that issue because American Fiction hits the mark and creates a strong foundation for in-depth discussion of its concepts in the years to come.
You write what K, feeding people. But you're not soaring narratives about black. It's like nobody reads Bukowski thinking his, not me. Maybe, but I'll be right there. Hey.
I disagree. I'm sorry.
It's not just that it's so affecting.
Mother, why didn't you leave him? I certainly don't feel.
For the final award for the evening is who sacrificed valuable. Without further ado, about attention. Oh, okay, I see some business. No idea what.
Say.
I don't know, I think that.
Well, Monk the character.
Later, and this is almost there.
Condensation?
Flat way. And hey.
By Stag.
Will she forgive him? Makes the whole thing feel like a romance.
Lead it. I have a confession to make.
You're a fugitive on the ground.
He's got a gun!
Yes! Perfect. Got it.
think they have.
What do you got? Yeah, that's good.